Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares. Today we focus on the 44th World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, where 2,500 political and economic leaders currently congregate. Noble and worthy goals were stated ahead of this year's meeting, but how and to what extent will those be realized? Let's have a look at a report for more on this topic.
Hassan Rouhani is perhaps the most noteworthy speaker at the 44th World Economic Forum in Davos. This is the first time in 10 years that an Iranian president has gone to the Swiss ski resort. Meanwhile, Iran's participation was nixed at the Geneva II conference, just a few hundred kilometers away. But Rouhani's focus was on warming relations with the international community.
We've had a history of deep economic and trade ties with the European states. With the implementation of the Geneva Agreement last week and its subsequent steps, Iran's relations with European states will be entirely normalized. The engagement between Iran and the United States in the past months has also entered a new phase. And for the first time, politicians from both countries have negotiated, exchanged views, and have made decisions to resolve differences in relation to the nuclear issue.
Shinzo Abe arrived by train from Zurich, and when he came, he painted an optimistic picture of the Japanese economy. But the Japanese Prime Minister has warned that military tensions in Asia could, but should not, threaten growth in the region.
If peace and stability was shaken in Asia, the knock-on effect for the entire world would be enormous. The dividend of growth in Asia must not be wasted on military expansion. We must use it to invest in innovation and human capital.
This analysis is shared by the president of South Korea, who highlights the importance of what he calls the creative economy.
A creative economy harnesses the creative ideas of individuals and marries them with science and technology, with IT, industries, and the confluence of industry and culture.
According to Africa's richest man, Nigerian Aliko Dangote, owner of a conglomerate that employs 11,000, the creative economy is alive and well in Africa too. Dangote made his fortune from oil and was ready with his opinion on what he calls a technological revolution.
10, 12 years ago in Nigeria, we had a total of about less than 500,000 telephone lines, both mobile and landlines. Today, you are talking about 129 million lines. We have 47 million people using the internet today in Nigeria. So you can see the massive revolution, not only in Nigeria, all over Africa, especially the sub-Saharan Africa.
Business and political leaders from around the world put focus on innovation and peace, which was echoed by the 100 heads of Israeli and Palestinian companies calling for a permanent settlement to be reached between the two peoples. On one hand, there's an obvious political interest in peace, but this being an economic forum, it is good to remember that the bottom line is still the bottom line, and according to them, an agreement can be good for business too.
Joining us for a discussion now in Davos are Elise Brazis, a professor of economics at Barrel University. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi.
Lionel Friedfeld, a financial analyst.
Good evening.
And of course, Daniel Roth, our very own I-24 News journalist. Thank you very much. Good. Okay, Ms. Brazis, you've done a lot of work, a lot of research on elites, how they're recruited, and what the connection is between their recruitment and economic growth. What can you say about Davos?
What I can say about Davos is that you have there the transnational oligarchy. Because in fact, what we had once were national elite. They came from a very different culture, social norms, and they were also with education in their own country. Today, when you look at the people at Davos, even if they are coming from Africa, from Asia, they all 50% of them had education in the top 20 universities in the world, Harvard, MIT, Oxford, etc. And So what you find is that they have exactly the same culture, the same education.
The same pedigree, so to speak.
They are very much friends one with each other, and therefore what you get is an oligarchy.
I see. What is the history behind this? Because technically speaking, when you look at Davos, when you look at what they say about the history of how this came to be, it seems to have started with very noble goals. Now, is this true?
Of course, first, it's not bad. I don't say that the fact that they meet, they have their own club, this is not the problem. The problem is the policy after in each country. And what we feel that the trend is, it is the fact that you don't have any more social mobility. This is the main problem in the world. It's not so much social inequality, but social mobility.
Right.
Once you could go up the ladder. Today, if you are not from the right family, you will not enter the right top university, or you will have a lot of difficulty to enter it, and then you will have difficulty to be part of either the political elite or the business elite. And social mobility is one of the main problems.
Well, let's see. We are going to go now to Davos to two different people that we have there. We asked Eitan Avriel, the founder of Israeli financial daily The Marker, and Reserve General Danny Rothschild, who's part of an Israeli delegation of 100 business people seeking regional peace, to describe the situation there.
Well, after Davos started with a lot of talk and questions about inequality, in the second days, the managers here, the 2,500 managers and 500 journalists that are here, have begun working on the reason they came here to in the first place, which is business, which is meeting with clients, meeting with suppliers, and trying to find out how they will make more money in 2014 and compared to what they did in 2013. But today also there's a diplomatic angle because there was a speech by the Iranian leader Rouhani and later a speech by Benjamin Netanyahu, and quite a lot of the attention right now has moved from business to see if there's going to be some kind of diplomatic development here.
The goals of breaking the impasse, actually from both sides, the Palestinian and the Israeli side, is to say as one delegation to the world and to the participants in Davos that it's about time to do something because if we are not going to do anything, the situation is going to go from bad to worse.
Now, some of the main issues that have been mentioned to be the topics at Davos have been whether the economic recovery is real, and whether central banks will be able to wind down the monetary expansion that they've pursued, and of course income inequality, which is a very popular topic, and the issues that have come from that, specifically youths specifically taking to the streets. Now, what do you think? Is it true that the U.S. and China are essentially leading the world in the recovery, and how far is this going to go?
I think what we have seen so far is a real strong recovery in the U.S., and I think it's led by the Fed that did an outstanding job putting liquidity in the market, putting 80 billion months each month, to buy back, like assets on the market. So injecting liquidity, it's, but it's free money, called in Wall Street. So it's a very interesting, but also there is, like almost a 0%, policy, which helping growing the economy. I think the Fed has done a great job on the one part. And the second part also, you have the gas, the shale gas story that dividing the cost of production of American corporates by 4, right. Meaning, all the assets of American company abroad are coming back to the U.S. So, people are hiring and, you create like a wealth, which is very interesting in the model. But if we look at Japan, Japan is doing exactly the same policy. Abe decided to name a new governor at the Bank of Japan, and they increase the liquidity on the market. Right. They also use, devaluating the yen by 30 to 25% against the euro and the dollars. And you have seen the recovery of the Nikkei plus 60% last year. For instance, the share price of Sony doubled last year, which is amazing. And today, we're seeing in Europe, Europe is not doing so great.
Hold on a second. Before you go on, before we continue, let's hear from two different industry experts regarding the recovery in the Eurozone.
6 years after the beginning of the great financial crisis, the world's financial system is not yet back in the shape that it needs to be in. It's not performing adequately, especially true in the Eurozone, where the recapitalization and cleaning of bank balance sheets remains incomplete, and more action is needed. And of course, that's one of the key issues, or one of the key tasks in the Eurozone for 2014.
If you actually look at the recovery, it's lackluster. It's uneven across European countries. Expected growth is just around 1%, mostly coming from core countries. This is not enough to close output gaps.
There's a big issue for Europe.
Now, obviously, the situation in Europe is very, very different. What is the outlook there? What is your impression?
I think it's different, for a very simple reason. There is a crisis of leadership in Europe. We can see it, from the ECB. The bank is not doing a proper job. It's not doing the job that the Fed is doing. It's not doing the job that the Bank of Japan is doing. Look at China. They're also handling things better. And this is a huge issue. And the problem is simply that Europe is not one voice. You've got Germany in one hand, which is exporting a lot, which has a competitive advantage. If you look at the automotive industry, all the industrial, so despite a strong euro, they managed to sell abroad. But if you look or listen to the French minister, at Davos, or Pierre Moscovici, and a little bit, like saying, the euro is too strong, so France cannot export. So
Right.
there is a huge difference. And I think Europe, it's a crisis of leadership.
Okay. One of the main focuses at Davos has been said to be income inequality, a seemingly insurmountable problem that faces countries worldwide. But some view the solution to income inequality in the economy as a relatively simple equation. The following video of Brian Moynihan, the CEO of the Bank of America, explains what it takes.
Well, I think the key to helping on the income inequality front is to create more jobs and put more people to work earning a good living. And I think in the U.S. you're starting to see job growth come back, unemployment coming down, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I think the key is just to create jobs and create growth.
So what would you say is so problematic about what Mr. Moynihan had to say?
Look, I think it's just a little disingenuous. Oxfam released this media savvy, proved their media savvy with the timing of this announcement that 85 people in the world hold the wealth of 3.5 billion of the poorest people.
Which is the bottom half of the world, essentially.
The bottom half of the world,
right.
Equal amount owned by 85 people.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Oxford just released a number that 47% of jobs may be automated in the next 20 years.
Right.
So what we're really looking at large scale is automation of the workforce, by and large. And it's something similar that happened 100 years ago with the Industrial Revolution. 1 in 3 Americans worked on farms 100 years ago. Now it's 2%.
Right.
You're seeing jobs being lost to automation.
Right.
And so the economy needs to respond to a reality where the types of jobs are going to change. Even service industry jobs are being replaced by computers in some cases. And so you need to have an economy that's responding to not just working class issues, but also joblessness issues. People who are unemployed, who need to live, who need to eat.
Okay. Yes.
But there is a main difference. During the first and the second industrial revolution, people were moving from agriculture to industry, and their wages went up. Here, because of this automation, people are moving out from industry into services where wages are relatively low. And this is one of the main problems that we are facing in the next few years.
Absolutely.
It could be that 2014 will be okay.
Right.
We don't know what's going to be the buzz in Davos. Will it be positive or negative? This we still don't know. But we have to understand that what we see in Europe, the fact that in Spain you have more than 25% of people not working, this is going to be a main crisis in the developed world.
That's a really interesting thing. Bill Gates somehow, I guess his timing is either really good or really bad, came out with an annual letter related to the foundation saying, there's 3 myths about the process of poverty, essentially the world. A lot of people think that the world has become poorer, where it's not true. The world is really better off, and he has all these examples of, how his foundation is doing all this great work. What is your...
Look, the implication of that, given these statistics that 85 people own the same as the bottom half of humanity, the 47% automation, given those realities and what you were mentioning, that what he's describing, where all the countries are going to be developed nations, as he put it,
on the macro level,
right. It doesn't mean that all the people are going to be rich. It means that there's still going to be this massive unemployment and massive workforce being underpaid.
Aren't we doing better than we did 100 years ago? What do you think?
Well, it depends on who you are speaking about. If you look at China, of course. If you will look now Vietnam, Indonesia, of course. But if you look at Europe, it's better than 100 years ago. But in the last decade, it's probably worse.
Right.
And especially the middle class is disappearing. The middle class is something completely new from the 19th century on, and now maybe it is disappearing.
We're going to have to end our discussion here. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to our panelists, financial analyst Lionel Friedfeld, of course, I24 News journalist Daniel Roth, and professor of economics at Bar University, Elise Brizis. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.